Day 1014 of the Ukrainian War Map, also known as the Russo-Ukrainian War. Juzzie here, and today is another update as I take a simplified and down-to-earth approach to some of the most important happenings on the ground in Ukraine. So starting off, we'll take a look at those Russian losses, as currently Russia sits on more than 745,000 military personnel losses, representing an additional staggering 1,760 losses in the past day. Then as for hardware losses, 8 tanks, 22 APVs, and 23 artillery. Then to take a look at a different type of stat, the Moscow Exchange, specifically the MOEX index, which has been on the decline, eroding in value since the SMO commenced. Just months before the invasion, the index reached all-time highs of 4,300 rubles, but has since dropped a whopping 40% to the level of 2,600 points, where we see it today. So the prolonged decline of the index reflects not only a loss of investor confidence, but also the detrimental impact of international sanctions that causes this index of Russia's top 50 companies to lose their value. And you'd be right to think that most of these companies are oil and gas companies, which the index is heavily weighted towards. A situation that becomes quite devastating when your energy sector has been hit with massive sanctions. And not just on the front end with pricing and or an end to international market sales, but on the back end too with sanctioned Western transference of technology that Russia needs to perform its, say for instance, offshore Arctic drilling, its hydraulic fracturing or fracking of tight and shale oil drilling, its oil refinery technology needs, and so on. As this so-called gas station with nukes of a country is a relatively well enough description of an expression where it refers to the lack of diversification within the Russian economy. Then headed into the map today, north of Kupiansk in the Kharkiv Oblast, as Russian forces had recently crossed the Oskil River in the very north. We need to go back in time a day or so to show you that one, then we'll zoom in. So there we go, and to zoom in we can see this occurrence at the more so narrow points of the river with a width of about 10 meters or about 33 feet. So as we can see here, just going back in time, even just a day, there was briefly a 2-kilometer extension of the Russian forces into the forest areas of the region. And I use the term forested areas lightly because due to the cooling later autumn weather combined with constant shelling, we're generally dealing with quite the thinned out forested areas. Then as we move back into the present, an offensive move like this by the Russian forces certainly calls into question the need for their own military objective feasibility assessment, because although Russian forces were certainly looking to take control of the immediate back-end logistical route utilized by the armed forces of Ukraine, just beyond this river location, for Russia to do so and hold this position across that river is simply asking for a lot of extra work logistically for their army, just adding a layer of complexity and is tantamount to an uphill battle with the extra operational difficulties it entails. All of which was surely part of a tactical exercise to subvert the AFU's attention from defending the Kupiansk front, but it's too soon and too far away, and above all, a costly exercise. Now, previous to that, about a week ago, Russian forces attempted a similar move over the river, just north of that location, which, as you can see by the blue indicated on the map, is an area, a position that's since been cleaned up by the AFU. Then headed down the map with a quick brief update on the Chasiv Yar front, as Ukrainian forces advanced on the town's southern front amid continued Russian offensive operations in the area. Geolocated footage published in the last 24 hours indicates that Ukrainian forces recently advanced southeast of the town along the T504 highway, which is precisely the direction that the Russian elements have been coming from. Then headed further down the map to Toretsk, with various FPV drone strikes that were seen taking place against the Russian forces, especially in the southeastern district of Zabalka. In fact, there's another slag heap right here, which you can only identify through the satellite imagery, so we'll pop that one up, where Russian soldiers that were seeming to attempt to reach the heap were the ones getting struck by the Ukrainian forces. And I must say, for this region, it always surprises me just how close this section on the map is to the 2014 Donbass lines, just a few mere kilometers away. Incredible given all the activity going on here for quite some time now. Oh, and notice that the purple maroon coloring on the map is the Donbass 2014 lines. But ultimately, back to Toretsk, it's an ongoing and difficult sector on the map where 40 to 50% of the town is held by Ukraine, 20 to 30% by Russia, and the remainder grey zoned. Then headed down the map to the Kharkova direction and the adjacent location of Velika Novosilka as well, where it's perhaps even more of a precarious situation than Toretsk in the north. Now, some suggest that this garrison won't last out the week, but it's nearly 10 miles deep, which makes that assessment seem pretty unlikely. And most recently, we did see new accounts of Ukraine's Peaky Blinders unit repel assault attempts on the village south of Kharkova, near to Dalny. And that was just this morning with the Russian goal to encircle the Ukrainian forces in that area using 4 tanks and 6 infantry fighting vehicles with dismounts. The convoy was left unformed, including 2 tanks that were destroyed and 2 infantry fighting vehicles. Now for this region, and best to pop back to the main topographical map, as there's also a number of reports of defensive structures set up below the N15 highway in this region by the armed forces of Ukraine, bunkers, trenches, minefields, and other fortifications, as a means to protect the AFU's supply route all the way through to Kharkova. So in terms of their placement, although it's difficult to say with certainty, one would expect a stronger leaning towards the setting up of more extensive defensive fortifications west of the Yali River, which is right here, so something in the form of looking like this, as the N15 highway is pretty critical to holding the entire area southeast of Constantinople. Then headed south on the map to Novorossiysk. Now this is in Russia, as the frigate Admiral Makarov, known for carrying caliber cruise missiles used in strikes against Ukraine, has been spotted by Atesh partisans and is currently under tight security. Machine gun posts have been established on shore to safeguard the vessels, as intelligence reports are being passed to local forces for potential action. The heightened security measures surrounding the frigate reflect Russia's strategic priorities, with these in-place protections signaling its commitment to safeguarding its military assets, particularly those capable of launching the caliber cruise missiles. Now, Russia previously had 7 or 8 naval vessels in 2022 at the start of the SMO that were capable of firing the caliber missiles from the Black Sea Fleet. Then it went down to 6 last year, and now it's down to 5, due to combat losses or damage and or down for maintenance. All of which has perhaps led to this increased need for security, these heightened concerns for protection of their naval assets in particular, most of which stationed at the new unofficial Novorossiysk Black Sea Fleet headquarters, because there is no chance that Russia will be making Sevastopol in occupied Crimea their Black Sea Naval Fleet's HQ for the foreseeable future. The proximity to Ukraine is just too darn close. Then headed across to some news for today. So the US State Department has unveiled a significant new military aid package for Ukraine valued at $725 million. This comprehensive support package includes crucial weaponry such as additional ammunition for HIMARS, Stinger missiles, drones, anti-personnel mines, and anti-tank weapons. Also included is additional munitions for the NASAMS advanced air defense systems, of which Ukraine now operates at least 5 NASAMS batteries, coming from the US, Canada, and Lithuania, with at least an additional 5 pledged for early 2025. Then to some more hardware news updates, because during his visit to Ukraine yesterday, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz also unveiled a new kamikaze drone, a compact version reminiscent of the Iranian Shahed drones developed locally in collaboration with German firms. The drone features an AI-driven homing system showcasing the evolving capabilities of Ukraine's defense technology. This unveiling is part of a broader exhibition that highlighted domestic drones and other technology, including ground robotic complexes too. Now, while the technical specifications remain undisclosed, initial assessments suggest it may serve as a short-range kamikaze drone capable of targeting enemy positions up to several tens of kilometers away, where it could effectively fulfill its role similar to existing systems like Russia's Lancet or Poland's Warmate 3. And then in a similar update, and very significant, I would expect, as Helsinn, one of Germany's defense technology companies, has officially kicked off production of the HX-2 kamikaze drone, set to enhance Ukraine's military capabilities. Expected to deliver around 4,000 units, the HX-2 boasts a range of 100 kilometers, so about 62 miles, and a speed of 220 kilometers per hour, or about 137 miles per hour. All impressive specs, but the standout feature is the onboard artificial intelligence that enables it to identify and engage targets even amid electronic warfare, making it autonomous in the terminal phase and resistant to jamming, becoming a formidable asset for striking deeper behind enemy lines. Now, in a press release, Helsinn emphasized the HX-2's design for mass production will be at a lower unit cost compared to traditional systems, although exact pricing details remain under wraps. Also, the drones can be deployed in swarms, operated by a single human controller, allowing for efficient engagement of multiple targets without redundancy. So if these drones prove effective in the battlefield, which seems likely given the incredible range, speed, and AI integration, then there would be every reason to suspect Ukraine would set up their own production facilities for the drones to increase production rates and decrease production costs. Oh, and yes, it does look a bit like the Russian Lancet drone, which has a range of about 40 kilometers or 25 miles, so less than half, but doesn't contain the breakthrough autonomous integration as found in these new HX-2 enlistees. Then headed across to a strange mixture of a Russian hardware update combined with a funny, because here we see another unique case of the Russian armed forces, as Russian soldiers in this footage are the ones that are watching as a Russian cyclist leads a Russian BMP fighting vehicle into battle. So they're looking at their own drone footage here, which fails to zoom in well enough to get a lot of clarity on the actual mode of transportation we see here, but one of the watchers was sure he was seen pedaling occurring, just as a cyclist would, though a second guess would be an off-road e-scooter of sorts too. And so, based on what the Russians said behind the camera, they were in disbelief that this was happening at all. A new tactic they weren't aware of. And so I would have to suspect that the case we're looking at here is an anti-tank mine human contraption. No one does that willingly. But where's the rest of the entourage? And are they mapping out the safe path for later? It certainly raises a lot of questions, where I would think that this tiny unit is probably just moving vertically in the Eastern Front from point A to point B to avoid getting hit by a mine of Ukraine's or their own deployment. But either way, it is very comedic to see on a battlefield, and done so by the world's second army. So that's it for today, guys. Thanks again for watching. Please continue to like, comment. Thanks for the support I've seen there, and I really do appreciate it. It's real important for the channel. So thanks again for watching, and I do hope to see all of you guys there in the next one. Cheers!